I'm Eric Barnes with the Daily Memphian, and welcome to the Sidebar, a weekly show on the community, arts, culture, and more. Today we're talking with Todd Richardson from Crosstown about all things going on at Crosstown, YXR, the new venue, many other things. So stay with us for a conversation with Todd, and a special thanks to our sponsor, Youth Villages. So Todd, tell me again what your title is, because you told me 4 times before we started, and let me see if I can do it right. It's you're President CEO of Crosstown Concourse.
You got it.
But that's a lie, because it's actually the Crosstown Partnership or something like that.
It is a lie.
Yeah.
I like to start out interviews with the local newspaper with lies.
With lies. Lots of lies.
The official is Crosstown Redevelopment Cooperative Association.
Yeah, we should have just done that.
That is the nonprofit, 501c3 nonprofit that owns and operates Crosstown Concourse.
I lose track that that's a nonprofit, in all seriousness. I always forget. Was it always a nonprofit?
No. We started out as a for-profit, which was necessary back in 2013 to take advantage of the tax subsidies. So the
like
new markets tax credits, the historic
stuff.
tax credits. In order to get a tax subsidy, they like you to pay taxes in the first place. And so
it's funny.
Folks have figured out how to get around that these days, but back then you had to be a for-profit. We would have been a nonprofit from the beginning, but we had to have the tax subsidies to make the math work.
And that's interesting. Well, you guys, this is so wonky to start. I'm sorry, everyone, but we're going to talk about more fun things. Were you guys a public benefit corp at first, or no? You're just a straight
LLC.
Up. Yeah, LLC.
For-profit, and then we transitioned to nonprofit in 2023.
In 23.
Beginning of 2023.
Yeah. We're sitting here on the 10th floor of Crosstown. Have you ever been up here on the 10th floor? Not a lot of people have.
I visit every now and again.
You happen to live on the 10th floor, and we're recording now, coming up on forever, because our studio got flooded about a year ago this next week, I think. And so Sidebar, at least, we've taped up here on the 10th floor of the atrium. And most people, it is interesting to bring people up here because I live here, I can get up to the 10. I, by the way, never asked your permission to record a podcast up here. I guess it's been fine.
There are plenty of things that happen around here for which my permission is not requested nor granted.
I would love, the one time early when I moved in here, and there was some really elaborate photo shoot going on with lights and some dancing and a camera and a video. And I mentioned to you, I go, do they have permission? You were like, hell no, I don't know what's going on. You probably don't want to promote that.
We have photo passes now that you have to get.
You do? Okay.
But that was forced because of those shoots.
But we're up on 10.
One of which was a lingerie shoot in front of the doctor's clinic on the 3rd floor. Yeah, that put us over the line to get photo passes.
So we're up on 10, but it is always striking to bring guests up here and do just in this area, because it's a really nice area to sit. It's so light, and most people have been in the atrium, but they've never been up here. And it is funny because about 25% of the time you walk by while we're recording, or your daughter walks by, who also lives in Crosstown, or Chris Miner, or Craig Brewer once in a while. And I'm just talking, I'm like, hey, there's a little shout out Craig Brewer. What are we going to talk about today, though? Let's start with the venue. So there's still a lot in motion, but I just actually drove back to Crosstown before we started recording here on, I guess it's Tuesday. Bunch of construction, earth movers. This is the venue. For those who for some reason have not heard about this, do your 30-second spiel on what the new venue is for Crosstown and Memphis.
Yeah, so Crosstown Arts is in the building. We have the green room, which is 150 person capacity, little music lounge. There's the Crosstown Theater, which is 400 music and movie theater. This will be a new live event venue that is with a capacity of 1,300, just on the south side of the parking garage, just across Autumn, next to the post office.
Near, across from people in the Crosstown Brewery.
Yeah, down on the brewery side. It will not change anything related to Crosstown Arts. Crosstown Arts will continue to do its thing just as it always has. This venue is different. In the sense that it's a partnership with Live Nation. So Crosstown Redevelopment Cooperative Association I've been working on it for over 2 years. It's been in the works for over 3 years. So we have designed it in partnership with Live Nation. And have started the demo across the street. And so we will own it and then we will long-term lease it to Live Nation, and they will book it, operate it, the whole shebang.
Which is an arrangement they have with lots of venues around the country, right?
Absolutely.
It's a very typical way for them to operate.
Live Nation these days, I think, last I checked, which was last year, they manage between 600 and 700 artists and bands, and then they also exclusively operate a couple hundred venues across the country.
Yeah.
And so as they are planning the tours for all those artists and bands, naturally they're going to book them in the venues that they operate. And so this will be a big deal for Memphis in the sense that it will give Live Nation a local hub here, where their employees, they're booking it, they're bringing in their folks, and so it's not a matter of, you know, if a band is deciding to play here, them choosing between this and another venue. These are Live Nation managed acts, so it's both and it's adding shows.
Because people, Live Nation's partner with Ticketmaster. You talked about the scale of it. It's a big deal.
Yeah,
it's not. And it is, and I'll say this, not you're not saying this, but I mean, you go to the comment section when we did the story, people reading it, people celebrating it, but there's a certain amount of people going, well, I don't like Live Nation, or I don't like Ticketmaster. You go back, like Jeff Hewlett was on the show, the musician, PR guy, and we're reminiscing back when Pearl Jam got in its fight, this was decades ago, with Ticketmaster and all that. And again, from my take is, I don't care. I just want the acts that are skipping over Memphis, and you can see it if you look online. There will be acts that go to venues of around that size. They'll go to Little Rock. They'll go skip over, go to Nashville. They'll go somewhere else. And I don't think it's a lack of demand. It's a lack of that relationship. That's right. My take. I don't know.
Well, I think it's a number of things. First of all, they will have 100 live events in that new venue a year. That's 80 to 100,000 more people, you know, coming to Crosstown, increased foot traffic.
Sure.
And when I first started working on this, I did some research, which is kind of what I trained to do.
You're a professor.
I was at one point. Yes, seems like such a distant life. But if
we have extra time, we'll talk about Dutch art.
Yes. Hopefully the time will pass before we get there.
I'll love that part.
No, I'm kidding. So I looked at Louisville, Kentucky, Raleigh, North Carolina, and Nashville. And I looked at venues between 1,000 and 1,500 in those three cities. And then the artists and bands who played in those venues. There were 225 collectively. This was kind of the 12-month period, 22, 23.
Bands that played at all three of those cities, or all three of those cities?
Yeah, okay. 225. Some were those were unique,
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
There were more concerts, but those are the 225 that had played. And then I looked at their tour schedule of that year of all 225, and guess how many of them played in Memphis?
I do want to guess. Under 20.
19. And that's when I was like, you know what? We've got to do something.
Yeah.
And
right.
it's like I've told a number of people who I love and are passionate about the music industry. Is this the right thing? I believe it is, and the folks at Crosstown believe it is. But we've got to do something. And so this is an opportunity to bring a massively major player in the music industry to Memphis, and really, to use Live Nation's words, they believe that in order to have a vibrant music scene in a city and to really be successful at booking FedEx Forum, you need a cadence of venues from small, medium to large, so that when somebody is thinking about what to do on the weekend, just top of mind, habit of mind is, well, who's playing?
Yeah.
Right. And that just doesn't happen. Now, I will say it happens as much. Right?
It happens with a lot of local bands. There's people, all that stuff is very vibrant, whether here or DKDC or whatever. But that touring band of a certain level, like you said.
Exactly. And that's it. I mean, you've got Skinny at the High Tone is working his ass off.
Yeah.
You've got folks at Minglewood Hall. You've got Halloran Center, DKD. You've got a lot of people who are working their asses. Sorry, can I say that?
Yeah, you can say asses.
Okay. To do everything they can, but this is a larger venue. It's with a major player who has direct connection with these artists, and I've said to everybody, it's not an either or. It's both and.
Yeah.
So it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. again, we're here with Todd Richardson of Crosstown Concourse Redevelopment Corporation, Inc., LLC. No, I don't know. I don't know why I'm settling up on that. But let me remind you, I'm going to do a little housekeeping. We'll come back. We'll talk maybe a bit more about the venue, but we'll also talk about YXR, and which Todd is the chair of the board of YXR, and I'm a board member as well. We'll talk about a bunch of other things, restaurants and businesses that are going to Crosstown. But let me remind everyone that I'm Eric Barnes, and this is the Sidebar. It airs on WYXR 91.7 every Thursday at 11:30. Focused on the community, arts, culture, and everything in between. I've been off for the holiday and I can't say the word between. But I will also remind people this is not just a radio show. It's one of many weekly podcasts we do at the Daily Memphian, including the Memphis Grizzlies podcast with Drew Hill and Chris Harrington, and our food podcast, Sound Bites, which also airs here on WYXR every Thursday at 11. We also host the podcast version of Behind the Headlines, the TV show we produce over at WKNO every week. All of our podcasts are on the Daily Memphian site, as well as iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can get this show and sound bites, archives of it at WYXR.org, or download the WYXR app. That includes all the WYXR shows, both talk and music, which is a great way to keep up with the shows you like, music and talk on WYXR. If you're not a supporter of WYXR, it is nonprofit, listener-supported radio. So look at becoming a member or do a one-off donation. If you become a member, you get all kinds of benefits. You can learn about those at WYXR.org or on the app. Recently, we had George Abbott talking about the Civic Commons. I mentioned Jeff Hewlett, musician and PR guy and friend of the show, on recently, as well as Anthony Young from Epicenter. On Behind the Headlines, we've got coming up, who is coming up very soon? Lee Harris and Judge Sugarman, Natalie Van Gundy with The Score. So in a couple of weeks, we'll have them on. And we've got other shows coming up as well. I should also note our first business seminar of the new year, Women in Business, which is really the best of the business seminars we do. That's coming up February 28th at 3:30 at the Botanic Garden. You can go to Eventbrite, search for the Daily Memphian and get your tickets, or you can go to Daily Memphian and click on events in the navigation, and that'll take you to where you can get tickets. But we are still, and coming up on Soundbites, that's what I was also supposed to mention this. The folks from Cameo are on, and they've just taken over the public bistro space and the Knifebird space. Those will now be, one's called No Comment. It's called No Comment. And the other one is called Fawn. I think the Knifebird place is about to open or is recently open. It's pretty soon. I think they're taking a little bit longer with the place that's going in with public bistro. But anyway, that'll be a great conversation with them. But we're still here with Todd Richardson. So we just talked about restaurants. I say we as if I had anything to do with it, which I don't. It's just because I live here. The Vietnamese place is about to open. When is that opening? And how big will I be within 2 months? Because I'm going to eat there.
It's true.
4 to 5 days a week.
Yes.
It's a problem.
It's going to be incredible. So they are in the process of permitting right now.
Yeah.
So they're just, construction's done.
It's beautiful. Like if you peek in the windows, you've been in there. I've just peeked through the windows. My gosh.
And it's even better when you're in there.
Yeah.
The vibe is great. About a year and a half ago, maybe, year and a half ago, Karina Pham, who owns the Gloss Nail Bar here, whose family started the Viet Hoa market down the street. Karina also owns Mochi and Me, and a couple of other things. They've got their fingers and their family and fingers in a lot of really great businesses in town. We were talking, and I was telling her that one of my favorite restaurants in the U.S. is a place called the Slanted Door in San Francisco, which is a high-end Vietnamese restaurant. And that led to more conversations, and so she has completely delivered on every aspiration that you went to
like a tasting, right? Didn't you tell me that?
There was a tasting the night of Delight when the lights came on, and so
thanks for the invite, by the way.
Yeah,
I was busy that night.
You're welcome. And so, it opens soon, in the next few weeks, as soon as they get their liquor, beer, and wine
awesome.
permits.
That's great. This is the space that was formerly occupied by longtime people remember Next Door, and then Wolf River moved in there, Brisket moved in there, and in or after the pandemic, the peak of the pandemic. What else, though? What else going on? There's a ton of stuff we were talking about before. I see a lot of moving trucks. I see more people in the building, just again as a resident, but there's a ton going on the office side of stuff. And
there are. We've
retail,
got 7 new tenants, commercial tenants. The The big anchor is Monogram Foods. Or they're moving their headquarters here. They're in the process of renovating their space up on the 6th floor. They'll have 55,000 square feet, bring about 180 employees here.
I'm excited about that, as you know, because my apartment partly looks down into their offices in the West Atrium.
Okay.
And there hasn't been a lot of activity to stare at while I'm making my coffee. And so now there'll be some activity.
You'll just need to take your telescope from one side of the apartment to
I
the
might
other.
just bring the binoculars. There's a few sets of binoculars. When I moved in here, this is the joke that you've seen because you've been in my apartment, that my daughter and I were so fascinated by, especially when the high tone was across the street.
Yes.
But just like people going in and out. And it was like, I think I had a pair of binoculars, then I bought a pair, then I bought a full-on telescope just so we could spy on people out in like the plaza and so on. So yeah, I can point it now at Monogram.
And
pretty
now
weird,
that
really,
fact is
that I
on
admitted
record.
That. It is weird, but we're leaving that in. I don't care. I'm old. Who else has moved in?
American Job Center, which is kind of a subsidiary of Workforce Development, the Chamber, and then also Collective Blueprint is leasing with them. Let's see, I'm not going to remember all 7. Protect Our Aquifer, Sarah Houston, they're here. Community Foundation is here for a bit while they renovate their building.
Community Foundation, friend of the show, Sutton Mora, literally delivered a Christmas card to me the other day. I was sitting in French. This is like the kind of thing that happens in Crosstown that to the outside world would seem insane, but actually here is only slightly weird, which is she walked by and she was like, hey, give me a hug. It's holidays. She goes, I got a Christmas card for you in our mailbox. I thought you'd want it. And the person I was sitting with was like, huh? What? I go, it's just a Crosstown thing. Just weird stuff like this happens all the time. So, yeah.
Yeah, DT Design, which is a landscape, land planning firm, which I'm super excited about. It's a great fit.
And is this mostly, I mean, some people listening who are like, wait, was there that much empty space? It's really it's a little more complicated than that.
Yeah. So Methodist Healthcare was on the 6th floor.
They were an anchor, original tenant.
They were an original anchor, pre-COVID, 500 employees here. Post-COVID, all of those employees are working from home. And so Monogram and American Job Center are taking that space.
Gotcha. Okay.
So it's really transitions. The previous tenants either scaled down or just work from home or didn't renew for whatever reason. And so, the wonderful thing about Crosstown is, especially in a time when employers are trying to motivate their employees to come back to the office and cultivate work culture and camaraderie, and it's hard to be innovative a lot when you're on the screen all the time. And if you're going to be in an office, Crosstown's a great place to be.
Yeah,
and it's not just because there's restaurants and arts and culture and music and beautiful lights and all the things, but even it's the largest LEED Platinum certified historic building in the world. And what that means is the from cost of utilities to the AI system measuring humidity and CO2 to make sure that the inside of the building is a pleasant place to be. Monogram moved here for a lot of different reasons, but actually one of them was because of that.
Really?
Because they wanted to be in a building that supported, sustainability.
Yeah.
It was something they were excited about.
It also, I'm going to jinx it, like the weather this weekend.
Yeah.
And like the worst storms we've had in the 7 years I've lived here, I think 7 years, maybe one of my 8th year living here. We just kind of watch it from the window.
Yeah.
Wow, that looks horrible.
Yeah, right. Right. It's all the utilities
are
jinxed
this. We're going to lose all the power.
Well, we can
water.
say all the utilities are underground, and so the loss of power happens very seldom.
Yeah. I once was on the phone with someone who was during a power outage, and they had lost their power and they were freezing, and their small child was freezing, and I was like joking with them and drinking rosé and eating hot soup, and finally realized that they were serious, that they were really like, it was not good. I was like, well, get over here, like there's an extra room. And so that has happened a few times where I mocked people for the weather, and then I opened the doors of my home as a gift. I'm so gracious. Let's talk about, I haven't been drinking. I feel like I've been drinking, but I really haven't. It's just, I don't know what it is. I just had a lot of coffee today. The mound. People very interested in the Crosstown Mound, as they call it, the land down past where the venue's going, kind of over towards the highway. It was the dirt that was put there to put the ramp that was going to cut through everything. Ramp was taken down. You all have been pursuing that property for a while.
Yes.
You've got it now.
Yes.
What's the update on the Crosstown Mound?
So yeah, I've been working on that project for 10 years.
Because did that like as part of before this was open, right?
Oh,
it was like how do we bring that in?
A big deal at some point. So it's, if you take both the land on the east side of Bellevue and the land on the west side, it's about 12 or 13 acres. And so this year, actually, just a few months ago, City Council voted to approve the sale of that land. It was originally owned by TDOT, and then we got TDOT to deed it over to the city. And the city went through its RFP process in 2019. And then this past year, they voted to approve selling it to a local residential development group, Eddie Kircher and Ed Apple leading up that group. And so, there's 250,000 cubic yards of dirt on the land, just about 13,000 truckloads that has to find its way somewhere. So it's small task.
Didn't somebody tell me that that's actually worth some money? You'll sell it, or no? Do you just find somebody who'll take it?
Yeah. Right.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of like getting rid of old furniture when you're moving.
I probably read that in the comments of the
I'm not
Daily
going to sell
Memphian.
it. You just come and take it, and that'll be the cost.
Yes.
To save me the time and money to move
Yes.
it. The first order of business, which is not a small one, is to find a place for the dirt. And then the plan is that will then become 20 or 30 townhomes, 20 or 30 single-family homes, and 100 or so
And there's
apartments.
some other development that Crosstown's not involved in that's happening near there as well, I think.
Yeah, we're not involved in the mound. I work with them.
Oh, you aren't?
No, I work with them just on community engagement and thinking about design and highest and best use of all that. And then there's another one just south of there, Scott Kern and Kern Development. They are there's a 3-acre parcel of land that's been empty for decades. And that's going to become a multifamily project, mainly townhomes and cottages.
Yeah. I mentioned you're founding board chair of WYXR. I'm a board member of the Daily Memphian, Crosstown, and U of M are the sort of whatever partners.
Yes.
The YXR is amazing except for one thing. The executive director is such a pain.
Lazy.
He's so lazy. His performance is so weak. We're really trying to figure out if Robbie is listening to this episode, is basically what it is.
We'll make sure he does.
Yeah. Robbie is truly, whether I hope he listens to this, but it doesn't matter because I think I've said it to him many times. He's not only so incredibly competent, so creative. He's literally one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. He's just the nicest person. I guess he gets mad. I don't know. I've never seen it. Not that as a board member, especially now, I'm not like with him all the time, but I see him all the time. He's just so good at what he's doing, as is Jared, as is that whole group.
I was going to agree with you and say his team makes him look good
it's
too.
Amazing. Raised by Sound was amazing. The big festival here and the concert, and it's really incredible.
What they have been able to accomplish in such a short period of time, in terms of not just in terms of the scale of the programming and especially the quality of the programming and the 100 volunteers, DJs that make it happen, but for it to become kind of not unlike Daily Memphian, and to become such a staple in the community in such a short period of time. It only took me a year and a half to say, Daily Memphian is our local newspaper.
Yeah.
And same with WYXR. It's what I listen to, and I know what a lot of people listen to.
People, you're nice to say that, and people say it now. We just had our 6th anniversary, so it's 6.5 years that we've been publishing, something like that. And at Daily Memphian, and the same we did, to a degree I did not understand until we'd done it, and we were a couple years into it, by bringing so many people that people were so familiar with in terms of Otis and Jeff and Jennifer Biggs, may she rest in peace, and all these other journalists, it made us seem like we'd been around longer because there were and that was kind of the goal.
Absolutely.
One, we wanted talented people, and we wanted people who could get up to speed immediately and knew the city. And YXR ended up doing the same thing. So Robbie and JB, just start there, are so well known in the music and creative community, and then the DJs. And so it has this sense that it's been around longer than it has. Because it's 4 years now? 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, going on
I think
should
5
know
of it,
this.
yeah.
In our fifth, about to enter in our fifth.
Yeah, so next
That's
year.
right.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
then they just got a major grant, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which again is something you get when you've been around a long time, established, and have the listenership and the people who were engaged, online, and they were able to get that pretty quickly, which is a huge kind of third-party affirmation of the work that they're doing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And there's funding that goes with it, just creates opportunities. And I mean, it's a volunteer, nonprofit driven place, but it requires funding to make all these amazing things happen.
And Robbie's inspired me. I mean, I run my board meetings differently, thanks to the inspiration of how Robbie runs his.
Yeah, he does. He's really, really good at it. Everybody there is. So what we got like a couple minutes left. What did we miss? What else is going on? There's always like these books. I'm looking over your shoulder. The other day I walked by on 8 where I live, and there's this empty bookcase, and Leslie and I, my girlfriend, were like, is that just sitting there? Is someone coming to get it? And then like days later, I see you hauling this giant cart through the atrium with all these books on it. I'm like, are you just cleaning things? What are you doing? But
I just felt like every floor needed its own little lending library.
I think it's amazing. I love that you're doing that. It's just funny.
Come curious, right? That's our motto here at Crosstown. But never know what you're going to get when you turn around the corner.
It is super weird.
Yeah.
Other retail that you can talk about? I know you've got some.
Probably the biggest thing to talk about that folks will read about in the coming weeks is we've been working, for the last 2 or 3 years on a TIF district, so tax increment financing, and so we're working with the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency, through which we're applying. And so it's a district of about 1,300 parcels from Union to Jackson, from I-240 to Watkins. If you think about the Cleveland Street corridor, it's one of the most used north-south corridors in the city. Major anchors, Methodists, Southern College of Optometry, Mississippi Boulevard,
this place.
Catholic Charities, Viet Hoa Market, Kroger, Crosstown Concourse, et cetera.
Roads or no? Short of roads?
No, short of that. But Cleveland Street is not necessarily the place that you would bring visitors to show how great Memphis is. It's, curb cut every 10 feet, not a lot of lighting, no treescapes. Could use some public infrastructure upgrades, to say the least. Poplar Cleveland is the most used bus interchange in the city. Yeah. And so this is a tool, a development tool where over the course of 30 years, as development happens, you create a base year of 2024, and then as development happens over 30 years, that the property values go up, which create the increment, and that increment goes into a TIF fund that can be used for public infrastructure upgrades and to incentivize development. So a lot of stuff going on. So
if people look at the Highland Strip, that's
a great example.
It's a great example.
A great example.
And I'm sure some people are like, "Oh, it was hard to drive down there, and it was construction." Well, yeah, it was hard for a minute, but it's really great.
Really beautiful.
The streetscape, it links that whole strip to the university in a way it didn't before, and
that's right.
Clearly spurred development and activity. It's just it was cool over there in a kind of grungier way. Now it's grungy, but also it's just that kind of design is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so our nonprofit partnered with Mississippi Boulevard, which is kind of the southern anchor, and then the Crosstown Memphis CDC, which represents kind of all the residents in between. And so our 3 organizations applied for Cleveland Street Corridor TIF District. Yeah. And so that's actually on this week. The CRA will vote on it, and then both the City Council, County Commission, and both mayors have to approve it as well. Yeah. So
but you're confident enough because you're talking about it.
I'm hopeful. Got to create a little momentum.
Last thing is, I realized recently sitting here that the first time I was in Crosstown, if people look straight up where the lights are right now in Crosstown and the main atrium, from downstairs you can kind of see that there are these gangways. These, I don't know what they're called. And you and I and George Cates on a tour walked on there. May he rest in peace. I suddenly remembered, like, I'd been up there. I thought it was my imagination. But it was that tour that you gave me. George was nice enough to invite me on that tour and a bunch of his buddies. And we were all over the dang place. And that was so cool, too, because the cutouts weren't complete of the atrium and the concrete. So there's these massive concrete laying on its side and columns, and George being just amazing George.
The scale of all that was just crazy.
All right, we are out of time. I can talk more about that stuff, but this is Todd Richardson. Thanks very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
That is all the time. If you missed any of the episode today, go to wyxr.org and get an archive of the show, or go to the Daily Memphian or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.